The world's largest undersea cable system will reach KwaZulu-Natal this weekend. The arrival of the 4,500-kilometer cable is expected to accelerate the growth of South Africa's digital economy. Nqobile Madlala has been speaking to several stakeholders about how this technology will benefit South Africans, and she joins us this afternoon on location this afternoon. Thank you very much, Nqobile, for your time. Tell us a little bit about this a cable, and as I said in my intro, how exactly it's set to benefit the residents of the Promise and perhaps broader South Africa.
Well, Rafiwa, if you are making a call and you're clicking on the internet, you basically need this cable because it basically transmits the information that you are sending from all around the world. So we know that this cable is very long. We know that they've already laid it all around Africa. And for you to have faster internet, you need it to be much quicker. And it can basically, anything that you go on the internet to do is basically a click away as they add more of that power for you to be able to do that. So just to get more information, I'm going to bring in my guests to speak to me about this cable. I mean, a lot of people at home are still wondering in terms of, we still use a cable to make calls and internet. Why is this cable so important to us?
This cable is fundamental to the core of the internet. There's cables like this all over the ocean, all over the world. And these cables connect continents together, and they connect all the big computer data centers around Europe, US, Africa, Middle East. They bring them all together. And we're sitting on a cable ship now that is part of a massive project, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, submarine cable project in history. The cable itself is 45,000 kilometers. It circles the entire continent of Africa. It goes all the way into the Gulf, and then down to India, and then up to Europe as well, and also up the west coast, east and west of Africa, landing in Portugal, Spain, France, and even Italy. So this really is how Africa as a continent connects to itself, all the different countries connect to each other, and also to the rest of the world. This is a new generation of cable, bringing orders of magnitude more capacity to the internet and to the capabilities of internet in Africa. And this cable ship, we are preparing at the moment for the landing of the 2Africa cable in an open access data center in Amanzimtoti, just outside Durban. That will happen on Monday, which is when it actually makes landfall in South Africa, which is a very special moment, very exciting.
I mean, very exciting indeed, but I mean, what does this mean for internet in terms of how fast it's going to be for someone who's at home?
So this brings more capacity, and with more capacity you get lower prices and increased capacity. Same as when you buy a broadband connection at home. If you think back 5 years, maybe you had 2 megabits, now you have 100, even a gigabit. It's the same thing but on a much bigger scale. And having more capacity enables more applications, cloud services, streaming services, anything you can think of. The more capacity you have, the more the world opens up to the creative applications on the internet. And ultimately, by bringing down cost, it creates more competition and it enables the economy. You know, submarine cable itself is a direct link to building on GDP around Africa. There's a lot of studies how this digital infrastructure spurs economic growth. And this is an amazing milestone for Africa, this project.
And I mean, while you talk about the economic growth, I would imagine that a lot more people need to assist in doing this work. Can we expect more employment for younger people, maybe?
So the project itself spurs jobs as well. And if I look at our company, we have tripled in size over the last 3 years as we add people and staff in South Africa, in Kenya, and in Nigeria and other African countries. So there's certainly direct job creation, but the real job creation is the ecosystem that's spurred out of these cable systems. The next level of the internet service providers, the services that are offered on top, all those jobs and that economic growth comes, fundamentally from this let's call it the foundation of the internet.
I mean, you spoke about the new generation cable. So what does that mean? Is this completely new, or did you have more cables underneath the sea?
So there's a couple of big changes. One change is that the scale of the cables. These cables are about 18 times bigger than the existing cables around Africa. There's another cable that my company Wild's part of on the west coast, driven by Google, which we land in Nigeria. It's also a massive cable, and these cables really spur that internet.
And I mean, essentially, you're a bulk supplier for an internet, am I correct?
Yeah, we form part of the consortium, and our role is really, we're about wholesale connectivity in Africa, open access, and that's an important part of the 2Africa cable. Unlike the older cables, which were typically run in monopoly landing stations around, 2Africa lands like in the OADC data center in an open access environment. So there's not restrictive interconnect costs. Operators can connect to the cable. It's not held by one operator in each country. It's truly an open access system. And that's another big change in the whole submarine industry globally, is that move to open access to the cable systems, and then of course the scale of them.
And in terms of infrastructure, I mean, we know that a lot has happened in KwaZulu-Natal. There's been flooding and so on. First of all, how safe is this cable underneath the water? Because, I mean, everyone at home could be thinking, But at the same time, also, what does this mean for areas that don't have signal? Does this mean that they can get signal now that there's this cable?
So as I say, the cable's really the core of the internet. Then you have the mobile providers, and some of the mobile providers are investors in the 2Africa cable alongside us, and alongside content players like Meta are also investors. So there are risks with cables. So for example, when there was the sea cable is laid in a very specific area, which is a no anchoring zone. So you have rules with the marine industry about where they can drop anchors. Fishing, you have to come to agreements with the local KwaZulu-Natal fishing industry. You agree right-of-ways with the local government. And ultimately, having the open access data center in KwaZulu-Natal means the access to the rest of the world is right here. Right here. You can't get closer. So over time, I expect a lot of the content that needs to get to South Africa or to the rest of the world will move close to KwaZulu-Natal, because it wants to be as close as possible to what we call the lowest latency. The lowest time to get from South Africa to somewhere else is going to be from the open access data center landing in KwaZulu-Natal.
So where to from here?
Where to from here? So this ship is one of 5 ships. The cable goes live towards the end of this year on the eastern part of the cable and through the Mediterranean and the Red Sea and up to Europe. And then the west coast cable goes live towards end of 2024. And it's a very exciting time, and looking forward to the growth in the ecosystem that we can spur on here.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. Well, Rapiwa, as you can hear there from our guest saying that it's interesting times. So this new cable being the new generation that brings more possibilities for you to have access to internet that is faster and quicker, but also just cheaper as time goes by. But of course that is then directed by your service provider. But they've started the work, and it's going to take some time to make sure that they lay all of that cable in the seabed.
Yeah, that's very interesting indeed. Also quite interesting, Nqobile, is the economic opportunities that this 4,500 kilometer cable system is going to create for South Africa. Thank you very much for those insights. That is Nqobile Madlala out in KZN. There at the arrival of the 45,000 kilometer undersea cable in KwaZulu-Natal. Actually, please excuse me.